I'm so wonderful. How are you?
I'm so glad. I'm so wonderful too. I think I'm so wonderful because I feel very passionate about what we have to get into today.
Oh, yes.
I'm really excited to talk with you about it.
Me as well. Yes, we were just saying, or I guess I was just saying before we started, the age of social media and being an artist and what that means. Because in this day and age, you are almost required to have a social media presence. I know that's not totally true, but it's basically true. It is a thing where people will look up your Instagram, whatever kind of artist you are. People go to the internet to discover your art. I feel very strongly that is the first point of contact for a lot of people. That's how you're discovered a lot of the time. Maybe not so much with acting, but in lots of other mediums, that is how people find you. It's just a fact of 2024.
Yeah, it can be a really helpful marketing tool. And I think in a lot of the same ways, it's created such a problem for a lot of people because you spend a lot of time on this app that's supposed to be really helpful, but you're giving yourself almost too much information.
Too much information.
Let into people's lives in a way that's doctored to how they would like you to perceive them. And then you're kind of stuck with that idea. And then you just kind of feel the sense that maybe you're not where you should be. Or it's such a... I can see where people think there's merit to it. And I can also see why people get really frustrated with it. But there is definitely a pressure as an artist in our day and age.
Yes.
Reels, reaching out to people, your engagement, how many followers you have, how consistently you're posting, and pumping out content just constantly.
Yes, it's such a slippery slope. Well, just how we were saying right before we started, I feel if you're an actor and you're working on your craft, you're in class, or you've moved to a different market, a bigger market, you've relocated, a lot of the people in your circle, and therefore the people that you follow, or just other artists that you're inspired by, are going to be the people that you're following. So to your point of everything is specially curated, right? I mean, I know I've posted crying about acting and auditions because I like to, I don't really care. I want to be more relatable, but it's so hard when, again, like you said, curated, right? And you're looking at these other people that you're following who are either your peer, like they're in your class, or it's another artist that you're inspired by, and you're seeing all the things that they're booking and all the auditions they're getting, and they're at this studio taping and they're at their fitting, and you're like, oh my God, I haven't had an audition in a month. So we have the same acting coach. I think we mentioned that in our last episode. And I didn't know that this was a thing. Maybe this is lore. Am I trendy now? Apparently that's a new trendy word. Lore, the myth. But there is this thing called a V-score. Have you heard about this?
A V-score?
Yes. Have you heard about this?
No,
oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, I'm so surprised that he hasn't told you about that.
Maybe he has. Is it like a star meter type?
It's related.
Deal?
It's related.
Okay.
So, okay. I feel like I'm maybe this is totally false. Someone can fact check me, but it's interesting nonetheless. So this was back, oh my gosh, maybe a couple of years ago. And I was in the 9th circle of hell with acting. I was over it. I was so done. And I wanted to delete my Instagram, or at least deactivate it, because I was just seeing every day. I was waking up and going to, survival job number 1, then survival job number 2, and coming home and sleeping 6 hours and rinse, repeat, and maybe doing an audition in between. And just seeing these other people that I worked with at my job who were like, all these auditions. And I was like, absolutely. Oh, and hearing about Okay, this is actually really funny. Related. This is the same thing. I got an audition for Hot Scientist. I am a scientist. I literally went to school for science. I was accepted to do my doctorate. That was what I was going to do. So I get this audition for Hot Scientist, and I'm like, oh, I got this in the bag. It's like 2 lines, right? Nope, not even a callback. But you know who did get a callback? Was
the one you worked with?
Yeah, the person that I worked with. And she was telling me about it at work, and she was all excited, and I felt bad. I think that's another thing, too, is, like, you want to be happy for your friends, but you also want that for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Turmoil. But she's telling me, and she's all thrilled, and I'm like, oh my god, that's awesome. I'm gonna go literally cry in the closet now. And I got home, and it was so dramatic, and there were so many tears. Anyway, so I'm talking to our acting coach, and I tell him, I have to get rid of social media. I cannot do this anymore. And he said, do what you need to do. Delete it from your phone if you must, but keep it there. And here's why. And so then he explained to me the V-score. Again, lore. Someone will fact check me on this. But essentially this V-score was something created by Variety magazine. And it is essentially, it's a mix of a few different things. Your star meter on IMDb being one of them. But it also has to do with your analytics on Instagram. A bunch of other stuff. Again, I don't 100% know. But essentially, he said this V-score, which people don't have public access to. So I don't, apparently casting.
Who has access to it?
I guess casting? Yes. It was very eye-opening and kind of terrifying to be told that you have a literal ranking that people look at and consider when they are casting you. Again, this can be like an open forum, but this is what he told me, and I was like, you're joking. So,
I mean, essentially, the star meter is that.
Essentially the star meter, but
we're all just a number from 1 to a bajillion.
But again, to your point of followers, I went to a panel when I first started acting, and it was a producer, a director, a casting director, and 2 actors, I believe, in Winnipeg who are on everything, basically. And someone asked this question about followers and Instagram. And at this point, I did not give 2 flying F's about Instagram. And this producer straight up said, if 2 of you walk into the room, identical in every way, you give the exact same performance, but one of you has 1,000 followers and the other one has 20,000, we're casting the one with 20,000 because of butts and seats. And I was like, oh, good gracious. Good gracious.
Yeah, I've heard very similar stories. I remember a friend telling me that they had gone to, it was something in the Chinese theaters. It was a film festival, maybe Holly Shorts, something of that nature. And they sat in on a panel one day, and a bunch of producers from major production companies were speaking at this panel. And they were saying that now the mentality is quite literally who can get butts in seats. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching a Hot Wings episode with Matt Damon. And to reiterate what he said, which I think ties in with this, and they doubled down on it essentially, was that in early 2000s, any time before basically the time that we're in now, where there was DVD, there were 2 premieres, and you had your box office premiere, and you made your money that way, and then the DVD premiere came out, and people bought the DVD before streaming platforms had everything, to have a copy of it. And now, because there isn't that second surge of income flowing in, they have to be less risky in any way possible. And casting kind of falls into that because they know that Timothy Chalamet is well liked, and the movies he's been in have done well, and so it's strategical, and you that's why I think you see a lot less of, oh, I've never ever seen this person before, and they're a lead in this blockbuster movie. That's not really our reality anymore. I mean, and at times it is. That's not an 100% true statement.
Right.
Way less common.
Totally. My fiance is also an actor, and he recently was speaking to his manager down in LA. And just so the audience knows, my fiance has quite the resume. He's been in the industry for 14 years.
He did Nickelodeon child star.
A Nickelodeon child star, as it were.
Let's not forget.
Yes. Did a pilot. Minnie Driver was his mom. But that was the last thing that he booked. He's also signed with a huge agency, by the way. Has not had an audition in 10 months. And the reason being, when he was talking to this manager, and this is not news to anyone who might be listening who is in the industry, or maybe it is. Maybe we can help provide some insight. But essentially, with the development of all these streaming platforms, and they have, they went on to all create their own content. Again, someone might fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure my numbers are right. There was something like 400 new TV series, and maybe it was series and movies, I'm not 100% sure, but new things to watch. I believe it was in one calendar year across all these streaming platforms. No one can watch all of that. So now what's happened is, and I'm sure you've seen it, if you're not in the industry, you've probably been like, oh yeah, that one show came out and was canceled after one season. There was a show filmed in Vancouver. It was massive, and it was so beautiful and wonderfully done and new also, because it was a musical series. And I get that's maybe a little niche, but for something like Grease, which is so iconic, you would think that it would have done well. And it was so beautiful. I watched the season, and it got canceled before all of the episodes were even out, and then pulled off of the streaming platform. And so what's happening is, all these production companies and streaming platforms that are producing all their own content are basically like, oh, we put all this money out and now no one is watching it. So we're in an industry-wide contraction right now. And so all these shows are being canceled. And so, like you said, Timothy Chalamet is in everything. I love him. Nothing against him. But, this manager was like, these A-listers are doing guest spots on Law & Order SVU season 823. Like, that's where we're at right now. So people, who are maybe at our level, a little higher, whatever, who would be auditioning for that, aren't even getting seen anymore, because it's all about butts and seats or eyes on screens.
A lot of straight offers.
Lots of straight offers.
These days, yeah. People just in mind.
Yeah.
Parts.
Lots of straight offers, because it's the guaranteed choice. And I understand that from a business standpoint. You want to make sure, okay, you get someone who you've worked with, you like their work, they're professional. So it all makes sense. Like, that's the thing, it's the machine. It just sucks.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's why people probably feel a little bit precious about their auditions.
Yes.
And the self-tapes that they're putting out, especially when you are seeing a lot of the people around you posting, oh, I'm on set, oh, I'm auditioning, I'm in a table read, whatever it may be. Yes. I think it starts to feel, people start to turn inwards. I've started to turn inwards at times, and then had to pull myself out of that and go, no, this is so arbitrary. What are you talking about? All you can do is put out your best content. And you know what? In other years, that's worked, and I'm sure it's going to get to a point. We're just at such a strange point right now. And I feel like I've heard a new slogan for every year to help actors hold on. Right now, it's survive till 2025.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing on the streets. But there is going to come a day where it's going to be easier, and hopefully there comes a day. But I think in this the meantime, we're seeing these influencers getting cast in these huge projects, butts and seats, and going, okay, I should probably start making content. I should probably start making TikToks, doing dances and
Yeah.
whatever it may be. I booked something a month ago, and before I left, I made a notes folder all about what I was going to post and what content I could possibly create out of that trip. Come to set with me, unwind with me after a day on set. I didn't do any of it. I wish I had the discipline to film all this content, create this really aesthetically pleasing reel, post it out to the world. But ultimately, I remember one thing I really wanted to create was a video because I was going to surprise my grandma with my presents.
Aww.
And so I was going to show the airplane and then the train and the whatever I took to get to my grandma's house. And then I have to use her little PIN code to get up to her apartment. And I was gonna say, hi, Grandma! And I just knew she'd flip out.
Cute.
And I was like, okay, this is gonna be a really cute moment. I want to document it. And then I went, whoa, I just want to live that moment.
Yes.
I don't want to be worried that I got the perfect shot, great audio. I want to go see my grandma.
And that's
more important to me, but
yes.
also content creation. It's such a weird,
so
what do you do?
Strange. And honestly, if you don't mind me saying so, I'm almost glad that you didn't, because at what point does it start to devalue the art when you have to do all this other stuff just so that people see you and like you? I remember when I went to that panel and they were like, followers, and I was like, oh my gosh. Other actresses in the city that we're from, I started looking at their Instagram, the ones who were booking a lot. And I was like, okay, what do I notice? And there was a certain type of content that I was noticing that was getting a lot of followers. It was boudoir photography. I'm sure it's not a surprise that people got a lot of followers from that. And, you know, so I used to model and I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And so I started modeling, doing boudoir, and I don't regret it at all. I had a lot of fun doing it. I got to explore myself. I got to travel. I worked with some really cool photographers, and I did develop a following. I was published in a couple magazines, and I remember one came out. I was actually on the cover, and I think overnight I got 1,000 followers. I was like, what's happening? But that's not something that
Did they tag you?
They did tag me. Yeah.
They credit you in the magazine by saying, oh, just your name or your Instagram?
I think my Instagram handle.
Okay.
Yeah, like in the publication it was my name, but then on their Instagram it was my handle.
Gotcha.
And I'm super grateful for that. But that was a certain point in my life, and I don't think that I'm comfortable doing that anymore. Not that I'm not comfortable, but it's just not something that I particularly want to do. And
I feel like I can remember you telling me that though that brought a lot of really cool creative shoots into your life, you're being vulnerable. You're opening yourself up to just being vulnerable. And has that ever led to any experiences where you ended up feeling uncomfortable or...
Oh, yes. That's the thing. Like, I would say 95% of the time, photographers were super professional and considerate. Because, yeah, it's so funny because it is vulnerable, but to me it was almost the same as doing an intimate scene with acting. It became so separate that it wasn't as vulnerable. I don't know if that makes sense. It was...
No, that totally makes sense.
It wasn't like sensual or sexy. It was very choreographed, and it was like, okay, we're here to do a job. We're here to get these specific shots. Yes. But with that being said, again, in the pursuit of content, I did do a shoot when I first moved to Vancouver, and this photographer had reached out to me. And generally speaking, the way I got around working with, or not working with people that I didn't want to work with was telling them my rate, because a lot of the time people don't want to pay for your art. So I was like, oh, my rate is $50 an hour. Let me know if that works for you. And I was fully expecting a no response or no sorry. But this photographer responded and goes, oh, well, I'm paying my other models $100 an hour. I had just moved to Vancouver. I don't think I even had a job yet. Like, I was living on credit, girl. So I was like, yes, sounds great. So I had planned, I asked him, I didn't have a boyfriend, but I was like, oh, can I bring my boyfriend? Because I didn't know this photographer. I just wanted someone else there with me. Things happened. This person wasn't able to attend. And I was like, whatever, I'm going to go by myself. So I go. The photographer was professional off the bat. I was a little bit surprised. I guess I was imagining the way he was speaking to me over DM. He was a lot older than I thought he was. We were shooting in a hotel. So that was already a little, just seeing this man and how much bigger he was than me, and the fact that I was alone and I didn't know him and we were shooting in a hotel, I was a little bit like, And
that would invoke some fear in me.
Yeah. And so, and I mean, this is 100% on me. Like, I should have known better. But again, up until this point, every shoot that I had, except for one other one, had been totally fine. Super professional, everything was all worked out, but whatever. So we get up to the room and he has, a contract there on the table. It's the only contract I've actually ever signed. And so that made me feel better. And he's like, here's the money, here's the contract. And I was like, wow, okay, like, down to business. This is all good. And then he started saying some things that made me go, how can I get out of here quickly? Such as, what's the most sheer outfit you have? What's the most provocative pose you're willing to do? And really uncomfortable compliments. He said specifically, he was like, wow, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Like, just really aggressive. I made up an excuse and I was like, you can keep the money. I gotta go. And he was like, no. Like, it's fine. When I'm back next time, we'll shoot again. And I was like, no. And I went to the bathroom to change. And I remember thinking, because I didn't lock the door behind me. And then I had this thought and I was like, oh my God, if he came in here, I would be done. I would have no way out. Mm-hmm. He was so much bigger than me. And I panicked. I started panicking. So I locked the door, of course. And I was just like, okay, I have to go. And all of this was for the sake of content and followers. And the funny thing about all of this is, like I said, that part of my life, I don't regret it. It got me really in touch with, first of all, being comfortable in front of the camera. That was honestly why I started doing it, because I was so uncomfortable. I hated looking at myself. And I needed to get comfortable with the camera, and I needed to get comfortable with my body and my sexuality, honestly. But yeah, that was something that I was like, yeah, I don't think I don't need to be doing this, because that's not worth it. What if something had happened? I did book this role, again, how in the sides, there was some intimacy, but nothing crazy. It was more implied. Same with the nudity. And then I booked it. It was a lead of an indie, and I get a phone call from the director, and he asks me to do my intimate scene fully nude. And I was like,
oh. How close was this to the time that you were supposed to be shooting?
Maybe a week or so.
Okay.
Yeah. And I still was pretty new to acting at this time. I guess I had been doing it for maybe 3 years. And this was the first time I ever had intimate scenes or any sort of implied nudity. And so I text my agent. I'm like, hey, do you have a second to talk to me about this role and nudity? And I swear the phone rings not even 2 seconds later. And she goes,
wow, what
nudity? And I'm like, yeah, so, and she was like, I wish I had a recording of the phone call, because it would have been like, absolutely not that beep, 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 beep. If you want to walk away right now, like she, and honestly, my agents, like, bless them for that, because I wasn't even sure that I could say no. I had no idea about nudity riders and, like, intimacy coordinator, which there wasn't.
Okay, and so they hadn't specified this before you had accepted the role, that's something that they'd be looking for?
Correct. It was not in the breakdown.
They said implied nudity.
It was implied, which that's fine. I'm okay
and
with
then
that.
had asked over the phone directly to you, the actor, would you be comfortable if it was full nudity?
Yes. Specifically, they wanted to see my bottom.
Your bottom?
Yes. That was the word
that shocks me for some reason. I don't know why that shocks me so
much.
But that shocks me that was the preference.
And it's funny because at the time, and like I had a great time on that set. Like
just
everyone
cinematically,
was
like in history.
Yeah. It was
not anything specified to you, just like as a whole. 80s movies. Every 80s movie. Have you seen National Lampoon, Chevy Chase?
No.
And okay, so like the Christmas holiday movies, the vacation movies, and the kids periodically in these movies get 10 years older. And they go to Europe, they have a Christmas one, they go to Vegas. Even in the Vegas one, like this is a full-on 80s kids movie, and there's this scene of the wife just fully lathering and showering. Like just topless, completely topless.
Why is that?
But that was so common in the 80s.
That was so
Pretty in
common.
Pink. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like there was a shower scene there.
Yeah,
it was so common. Anyway, all that is to say, that's why I was like,
but it's so funny, and maybe that was
how it goes.
Maybe that was it, because I was watching a movie. They just shot a remake of it in Vancouver, Silent Night, Deadly Night. And so I watched a little bit of the original just so I could, get an idea. But yeah, same thing. It was like, why are there boobies everywhere for no reason? It's like this girl's
like
getting
watch
killed.
A lot of the Yeah. I feel like when you watch a lot of the movies from that time back, there's a lot of, well, you can't do that anymore. You can't say that anymore. A lot of for the better, but
but that's
for sure.
like,
anyway, that shocked me.
No,
so they called you, beep beep beep, had your back 100%. If you're uncomfortable with this, we're not going to push you to do this for a paycheck.
Oh yeah, they were like, no, it wasn't even that. They were like,
absolutely,
we're gone. We cannot even believe that.
They were out.
Yeah, they were like, no, and that's like my experience on set. Aside from that, was fine. That's why I don't want to like talk badly, but at the same time, and I'm so grateful that I booked that role, and it was awesome. Everyone was lovely, but at the same time, knowing what I know now, again, because I didn't know that was my first intimate scene, or implied nudity, I didn't know that when that's a thing that's going to be a part of your role, it has to be in the breakdown. Which is, for people who don't know, when the audition even comes out, it has to say, before you've even done the audition or before anyone submitted you for anything, it says that the role will require partial nudity or implied nudity or whatever. So they know off the bat, like, okay, this is what this role is going to have. Then once, if you're up, like if you're offered the role or whatever, there's something called a nudity rider, and that puts into explicit detail exactly how much will be shown, what will be shown, when, in what scenes, same for like sex scenes or anything like that, intimate scenes, and everyone signs off on it. So there's no surprises, or there's not supposed to be any surprises when you walk onto set that day. Because again, right, when you're new and you don't totally know, or even if you're not new, right? If you show up and this whole production is waiting for you to like, okay, well, hey, we changed our mind and we actually want you to take your top off, and the clock's ticking and every second is another, $100,000.
Yeah.
The pressure is there, right? So yeah, again, super grateful for my agents, on that. But to bring that full circle, I do sometimes think, and I think I was actually crying to our acting coach about this, because like I feel like the, you know, the boudoir modeling that I've done has now, you know, led me to this place where I'm only getting cast in roles because they think that I'm willing to get naked. And I wasn't ever naked in any of those photos, but yeah, it kind of, I don't want to say it backfired on itself, because I don't know that that's what happened, but it definitely made me go, okay, what's the image that I'm putting out? Should I care about that either way? Should I own this? Am I good with it? Am I not comfortable with it? What's the purpose of it? Is it getting me what I want? Should I even be doing that for an end goal? Like, it really made me reflect on myself and the industry as a whole, and just where we're at with all of that.
You know, listening to that makes me immediately feel like everything should be driven by the pursuit of the most genuine artistry for yourself.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean how many likes you'll get, or because that's exactly how I felt with making a video about seeing my grandma. Though that's two totally different worlds, it's the same in the sense that I was going to use that opportunity to create engagement on social media, and then last minute was like, oh, but that's a really special moment in my actual life.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna not exploit that. That's very hard.
That's totally what it is.
It is slightly, yeah. And I'm like, I'm not gonna, I don't know. I feel like that cheapens my own life experiences.
Yes.
And, yeah.
And then again, like,
there's such an importance, yeah.
It devalues the artistry. Like, I think when you're constantly, you've got your art, and that's, I actually heard a really good quote the other day. I can't remember, it was an actress on a carpet somewhere. But she said, you don't have to be any more or any less than who you are and what you're bringing. You don't have to do anything more or less. Your average is good enough. Like that, you and your essence is good enough. Yeah, it just feels icky.
It does feel icky. And I think your perfect projects will find you.
Yeah.
In a sense. Of course, you have to be auditioning and staying on top of classes and making sure you're sharp and ready. And that's what a lot of people have been saying about this Survive Till 25.
Yes.
Is that, okay, well, in this period of time, what can you be doing to better yourself? And a lot of that is classes and sprucing up your marketing materials and whatever that means. But I think everything that you do should be driven not by, will this get me fame, so to say,
right,
or will this get me a certain level of followers, of whatever that verified on TikTok, Instagram, whatever it is. But just, do I feel really excited about this? And that's kind of why I had mentioned, hey, let's start a podcast.
Totally.
Because I was like, that excites me. The idea of sitting here and chatting with you about these things that are really important to both of us and sharing that. I'd way rather sit here and do that and feel fulfilled with you.
Yeah.
And be able to post about that than to show you how I can style my Tasman Ux in 3 ways.
Yeah.
Because to me, and you know what? If your whole life and brand and career is fashion and that excites you,
amazing.
Do it.
Yeah.
Go do that. And that's awesome and that's cool. And I want to watch you because I don't know actually how to style my Tasmans in any way where I'm like, whoa, that's a bitchin' outfit.
Exactly.
So I want to watch you create that. But if I'm doing things because I'm like, I have to do this for a result, opposed to being driven to do these things by my own passions, that's so disingenuous.
So disingenuous. And again, like you said, it's like it's producing something to get a final result. It's not real to me anymore. It's not even art anymore at that point. And also the time commitment. Like you said, if that's something that you enjoy, if you want to create content, amazing. Love that. And guess what? I'm going to watch you at 2 a.m.
I'm going to watch it too. I really want to emphasize that was not me judging.
Yeah, oh my God, no.
Anyone who wants to style anything, like, I want your tips. I sit there
Please.
for hours just going through them, like, thank you.
Yes,
You've
literally.
solved this problem for me. Now I can wear my Uggs.
Yeah.
But for me, just personally for me, if I'm creating that sort of content to get a result in my career that's totally unrelated, I'm not going to be satisfied. But I think it all comes down to why we're doing this in the first place. If you're not having fun doing it, I'm not having fun watching it.
Well, I hope, we answered some questions or maybe made you think of some more. I know I had some questions, so if anyone has the answers, please let us know.
That's something I wanted to say really quickly, too. Feel free to write in with questions, DM, comment, YouTube. I don't know if you can comment on Apple, but you probably can't comment on Apple Podcasts. But if you were to comment on our Instagram post or our YouTube, like, we are always open to questions. A little Q&A section.
Yes.
We could always incorporate that. But yeah, it was really lovely.
It was so lovely chatting with you.
Lovely chatting with you.
We'll see you guys next time.